art is based in Kiev. I brought these works from Kiev. These are recent works. This is a painting with the elements from coat of arms of Soviet Ukraine. This like speaker of wheat, or like ears of wheat. There were different versions of Ukrainian coat of arms, and often sweet was most recognizable element. And it's a fact that Ukraine never had like stable, long-lasting statehood. Lithuanian state, Russian Empire, western part was in Austro-Hungarian Empire. Ukraine was twice occupied by Germans, like shortly during World War I. But actually, Germans were like on one hand occupiers, but also like political partners of Getmanat, like one of these projects of Ukrainian state, which didn't last long. And then during World War II, during all these periods, Ukraine was considered to be the place where like bread is taken for the needs of the center. Periphery, like agricultural periphery, which provides like wheat. And it was like a place of extraction for the needs of others. And Ukrainians, especially in Russian Empire, were seen as like natural-born agrarians, natural-born farmers, those who know how to work on the land, work with the soil, those who always sing songs while working. And like this also stereotype of singing nation. They just like plow the field and sing songs, and they're happy with it. That's enough. And this way Ukrainians were like deprived of, let's say, political and then historical subjectivity. It repeated many times through history. Like, and we know the versions used in Russian Empire and in Russian ideology the best, but also there were like different options. And it's really interesting to go through the German documents, especially from 1918, when Ukraine also was a place like of extraction of agricultural goods. Yeah, so here this wheat, but nothing recognizable in the middle. I took away the rest of symbols which were there, and sweet rather like hugging the void, like there was an emptiness inside. And there is other recent painting, it's called Horse in the Water. I don't know if there are people who like really try imagine that the water is there. Somebody says rather field, rather grass. Plenty of chaotic, dirty brush strokes, and somehow it's like almost a pure motoric covering the surface with this like shades of black. I added the horse head, just floating in this chaos. And another head of the horse is here. There is only one curved line, and this image is based on wall painting in medieval church in Kiev called Kirillivska Church. It has like paintings from like early Middle Ages, like as I remember, like 14th century, and at the entrance there are like death and hell, and this stands for death. So there are like worms, which look maybe even more like in shape of snakes, but these images are only human depictions in the show, except of one element I'll tell. So these three drawings are the part of a bigger series, and I started the series in early March 22, being in bomb shelter, because it was the very start of Russian full-scale invasion in Ukraine. You know, we have the war since 2014, since annexation of Crimea and start of activity of Russian proxy in the eastern part of the country. But in 22, Russians were about to enter Kiev, and they already were in small towns surrounding Kiev, places like Bucha or Gostomel or Irpin, and like Bucha massacre is very well known. But these are like 20 minutes drive to Kiev, and people were preparing for like defense. There were like Molotov cocktail in the yard, and people got weapons. Just in the gallery there was like small military unit in the yard. The big building where gallery is situated. And okay, I was in the bomb shelter, which were in fact like Voloshyn gallery in Kiev. It's in the basement, and this basement was like a bomb shelter during Cold War. Like it never was really used, but it was like prepared to that. And some moment I started to draw. I had only like A3 album and a bit of charcoal, like showing shops were closed, and I didn't have like access to art material, but I started to draw with what I have, and was repeating this motif of black plowed soil and the human figure on the soil, because there were plenty of photos of the victims of Russian aggression, but also of dead Russian soldiers, and some images you really couldn't recognize who it is, but it's just a human silhouette, and I've seen them rather shadows of people, like soil, like consuming bodies, like decomposing them, but something remains, and you could see Ukrainian land as something covered by these shadows. There's a brilliant book by Austrian writer Martin Pollock, The Poisoned Landscapes, and he writes about Eastern Europe as like enormous amount of hidden mass graves, which have no any signs marking them. But our land, in fact, is enormous graveyard, and often people who died very, very violent death. Then I started to draw it with human silhouettes, and then I developed the series where also there was Gary, and he's really known at US international scene. David Velasco, he contacted me and asked to contribute something to Art Forum, and he published the material in support of Ukraine. So it's somehow me like resembling or mirroring his well-known text about Palestine. He was fired for it, and I guess some of this. So David was one who like made an effort to give visibility to this areas, and then we had like a talk with him in Venice, which was recorded. And then I turned again and again to this motif with like different variation, but at some moment I became more interested in animal figures than in human ones. Now we like jump to another wall. It's our charcoal drawings with explosion craters. There are like plenty of them in Ukraine now, because Russians threw enormous amount of explosives, like on cities, towns, villages. Sometimes there are also plenty of images of just explosion craters in the fields. And often you see this photo and you don't understand why they are bombing like some suburb where only like one-story private houses, like some farms, because they always write that they bomb like only strategic military objects, but you just see like missiles hitting children hospital, and I witnessed like missile strike in front of my studio. It was just other side of the big park, and plenty of residential houses are destroyed, and sometimes you don't understand the reason except of just killing civilians for the sake of killing civilians. And yeah, here I reduced the form, like making it more abstract. Just this, this cup in the ground, and I added these masks. I thought about like human habit to giving face and name to historical process, to political process, like to depict like patriarchy or colonialism or nationalism or capitalism or like anti-colonial, anti-capitalist struggle. We need some like face, the character, like we need some angel of history to understand the logic of history. We need figure on a pedestal to represent like struggle of millions. Somebody has like to be like a mask face. And I just thought about suffering of Ukrainian soil, and so that it's not human faces which represent them. That should be rather face of animals. And there could be some images which look almost absurd, like almost like offensive for the people who died. Like let's think about all insects killed during this war. Like, or imagine the monument to a broken branch of the tree, broken by some explosion or this explosive wave. Tree somewhere out in the periphery of some eastern district of Ukraine, like periphery of the periphery of the periphery. And just this broken branch, and somehow I imagine monument to this war. My thoughts go in this direction. And maybe the reason is big disappointment in wartime human activities, because in the very beginning we were all full of enthusiasm, and also situation was very clear. We are attacked by a terrible fascist regime, but later, like, you understand that, yeah, we don't criticize victims in the moment of violence, because it means like supporting this violence, but okay, not victims are saints, and there are victims of the victims sometimes. And if victim is a big collective entity, there could be plenty of like destructive process inside. And as a person who is based in Ukraine, who works in Ukraine, I can afford some internal criticality as well. But when I'm thinking about like innocence, like maybe the animal is like non-human, is an innocent. But then I'm returning to these colonial stereotypes about Ukrainians. as these children of their land, like hardly working, growing bread for big centers, civilization centers, and being happy with this. And I thought about this big, centuries-lasting tradition of dehumanizing Ukrainians, and that maybe in some sense we got used. And also I thought about this practice, you know, when you reclaim some derogatory term, some word which is used to like rather discriminate you, but you reclaim it, like punk, queer, or like impressionist, and yeah, and then somehow combined it with this more like new ecological thinking, maybe object-oriented thinking, and like politically radical ecological thinking, and what that situation of natural-born agrarians and like not enough human beings in this sense is a good position to look at things. Maybe something can be understood when you look from this place. And yeah, there is one more, like human elements, human radials, like radial bone, in the corner of the gallery. And these three hanging objects, they are made using wooden handles of old Ukrainian agricultural tools. Once being like on a big flea market in the suburban part of Kiev, I found a man who sold like dozens and dozens of old shovels and like different tools. They were old, rusty, old wood was in cracks. And he told that they're from village where nobody lives anymore. I bought a number of them, and we ordered this sharp, I call them like rays or beams, like sunbeam, sun ray. And sorry for my English, it needs some translation to normal English. These objects which are very sharp, like brand new, well polished, very glossy. And for me, this stands for, you know, like human-centric, man-centric mindset, like something full of this aggressive initiative, like penetrating any environment, like colonizing, extracting, just you know, being totally aware that all this world exists like for like you know, our needs, our pleasure, and also they looked like weapons made of agricultural tools during plenty of peasant uprisings which took place on Ukrainian territory, and which almost always were tragically unsuccessful and led rather to like mass murder of those who initiated them, but also of plenty of like family members and just representatives of their like class, ethnicity, region. So, and yeah, this radius is actually the ray. In Ukraine, promeneva kistka is like literally a ray bone. And yeah, it's something on like human intention, maybe seen from imaginary non-human perspective. And this sun, this work is called On Sovereignty, and it looks like this protective elements on the fences, often of some rich houses. But also it's a very standard shape of window grid in USSR. Like most of windows have this rising sun in all these enormously huge Soviet territories. Like also, I know that in many countries can be present as a part of like folk architecture, like ethnic ornament, like solar symbolics is highly present in different forms. But in like Soviet post-war neo-modernism, it was like, I don't know, majority of the grids of the window were in the shape of the sun. And it's a rising sun where its rays are like sharp arrows, something potentially very hurting, but they are sharp on both sides, so they hurt one who is in the center as well. Yeah. That's it. Thank you. Thank you.